What happened to over 400,000 German soldiers after they laid down their arms to the Americans in 1945? Most people think they were simply shipped home. The truth is far more surprising. Between 1942 and 1946, more than 425,000 Axis prisoners, the vast majority German, lived, worked, and in some cases rebuilt their lives behind barbed wire on American soil. From the deserts of Arizona to the pine forests of Michigan, from Texas cotton fields to Minnesota beet farms, the largest involuntary migration in U.S. history unfolded quietly while the war still raged. This is the forgotten story of German POWs in America during the Second World War. By early 1942, the U-boat campaign was bringing hundreds of captured Kriegsmarine sailors into Norfolk, Virginia. After the Tunisian surrender in May 1943, 150,000 Afrika Korps veterans, Rommel's men, arrived in waves. The final flood came in the summer of 1944 and spring of 1945. Entire divisions from Normandy, the Bulge, and the Rhine crossed the Atlantic in the holds of Liberty ships. The U.S. Army's Provost Marshal General faced an impossible task: house, feed, and secure almost 500,000 enemy combatants under the Geneva Convention on a continent that had never held prisoners of war on this scale. The solution: 511 base camps and over 650 branch camps scattered across 46 states. Most were built to a standard pattern. For compounds of 1,000 men each, surrounded by double 10-foot fences topped with barbed wire, guarded by wooden watchtowers every 150 yards. Yet the camps were not in remote wastelands. Many sat within sight of small-town America: Aliceville, Alabama; Hearne, Texas; Mexia, Texas; Camp Trinidad, Colorado; Camp Algona, Iowa. The prisoners wore uniforms dyed with PW in large white letters on the back and legs. Their guards were often older men of the Army Service Forces or soldiers declared unfit for overseas duty. Little did anyone know that this forced encounter would quietly change thousands of lives on both sides of the wire. June 1943. The first large contingent, 150,000 Afrika Korps prisoners, begins arriving. They are hardened veterans of the 21 Panzer Division, 15 Panzer Division, and 90 Light Afrika Division. Many still wear faded tropical uniforms, sunburned faces, and the Iron Cross at their throats. They step off trains in 100-degree heat at Camp Hearne, Texas, staring in disbelief at endless cotton fields. By 1944, the population swells. Camp Rupert, Idaho, holds 4,000 U-boat crewmen. Camp Como, Mississippi, receives SS men from the 1 SS Panzer Division, Leibstandard. Camp Alva, Oklahoma, takes paratroopers of the 5 Fallschirmjäger Division. The Geneva Convention is strictly observed: 3,000 calories per day, Red Cross parcels, mail privileges, and pay at 80 cents per day in canteen coupons. Yet friction grows. Hardline Nazis attempt to enforce ideology inside the wire. In Camp Papago Park, Arizona, 25 prisoners led by U-boat Captain Lieutenant Hans Werner Krauss tunnel 178 feet under the desert in December 1944, the largest POW escape of the war. They reach the Gila River only to discover it is dry. All are recaptured within weeks. At Camp Trinidad, Colorado, 2 anti-Nazi prisoners are murdered by SS loyalists in November 1943. The U.S. Army responds by segregating camps: black compounds for convinced Nazis, gray for undecided, white for anti-Nazis. By early 1945, the camps were a microcosm of Germany itself: ideological war behind barbed wire, while the real war destroyed their homeland spring 1945. Newsreels of liberated concentration camps reach even the most remote stockades. American guards force prisoners to watch the footage. In Camp Alva, Oklahoma, a former Buchenwald guard is recognized by a Jewish-American sergeant. The man is dragged from formation and beaten unconscious. At Camp Hearne, Texas, prisoners are marched past the corpses of Dachau stacked like cordwood. Silence falls. Many men weep openly. Others refuse to believe the images are real. Then comes the greatest shock of all. Germany surrenders unconditionally on May 8, 1945. Overnight, 425,000 trained soldiers become men without a country. The U.S. War Department now faces a moral and logistical nightmare. What to do with 500,000 former enemies who have seen American democracy up close, who have worked beside American farmers, who have eaten better in captivity than their families under Allied bombing? Repatriation is delayed. France demands 1.8 million POWs for reconstruction labor. The Soviet Union has already taken 3.3 million. Many German prisoners beg, literally beg, to stay in America rather than be sent to French coal mines or Soviet camps. At Camp Mexia, Texas, 300 men sign a petition. We prefer to remain prisoners here than be free in a destroyed Germany. The U.S. Army refuses. The Geneva Convention demands prompt repatriation. Yet the human cost is about to become heartbreaking. Summer 1945, a quiet revolution begins inside the camps. The War Department launches the intellectual diversion program, later called re-education. German anti-Nazi prisoners, American university professors, and even Hollywood filmmakers produce newspapers like Der Ruf, film screenings, and guest lectures on democracy. At Camp Algona, Iowa, prisoners build a 60-foot-long nativity scene so beautiful it becomes a local tourist attraction still standing today. In hundreds of camps, POW orchestras play Beethoven and Glenn Miller side by side. Prisoners form soccer teams that play against local colleges, and often win. American farmers who once cursed the Krauts now fight to keep their best workers. In Hereford, Texas, a blind prisoner named Franz is adopted by the town. Citizens raise money for his operation after the war. By 1946, the re-education program had reached over 350,000 men. Tens of thousands secretly apply to emigrate to the United States. When the last camps closed in July 1946, many guards and prisoners shake hands through the wire and promise to write. Between July 1945 and July 1946, 425,671 Axis prisoners were repatriated from the United States. Only 3 successful escapes are never solved. Official U.S. records list 22 deaths in captivity, most from illness or accident. No prisoner was ever executed. The re-education program is credited with helping create the democratic mindset that allowed West Germany's rebirth. Thousands of former POWs did eventually return legally to America in the 1950s and 1960s as citizens. Camp newspapers, orchestras, and artwork remain in local museums from California to Maine. In Aliceville, Alabama, the old campsite still has the concrete footprints of the mess halls where Afrika Korps veterans once queued for peach cobbler. Every year on Veterans Day, American and German veterans meet at former campsites, former enemies, now friends. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to World War II Files as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.